Check out this clip from our must-see interview with co-founder of the Bible Project, Tim Mackie. You can find the full link to this interview in the notes and comments of this video. If you haven't yet, please take a second. It only takes a moment for you, but means so much for this ministry. Subscribe and turn on the alerts, as this is the best way to connect with our channel. And your motto at the Bible Project is the Bible is a unified story that leads to Jesus. Your mission is to help people experience the Bible as a unified story that leads to Jesus. Yes. Early on, learning from you and just hearing all of your teachings and what I was encountering, the motto for Ring Them Bells that came up is the beginning is near. And how I explain that is twofold. One, you've taught me to see the story of Genesis is always near, right? So that as I'm reading through the Bible, the beginning is near as I'm reading through, right? Also, for me, coming from that kind of like a different, strict background with understanding the Bible, there was a lot of doom and gloom about our future in Jesus, and a lot of people would say the end is near, but also I say that to say that no, with Jesus, the beginning is near. But either way, out of that, you've taught me that the Garden of Eden and Genesis moment of the narrative should always be on our minds. A key part of that story is the serpent, who is both contextually and narratively revealed to be a divine rebel or spiritual being who is turned against God and humanity. So before I ask my next question, I want to share a quick clip from one of my favorite sermons with you.
But if we take the whole cycle of the biblical story, I think the one that Jesus was angry at was not God. It was that freaking snake. That snake. That's the one that Jesus was angry at. And knowing that he was doing exactly what God was calling him to do, to overcome the snake through his death and resurrection. And I want to get to a place where when suffering happens to my life and the people that I care about, where I'm not suspicious of God, but God becomes the only place that I know to go. And where my anger is directed is at that freaking snake. Are you with me? I want to get to that place. And so for a long time, when I was introduced to what the story of Christianity and the Bible was all about, it was a way of telling the story of the Bible that went like this. Everything was created to be perfect. Humans give in to sin and death, and make it all bad and terrible. And through Jesus, everything is going to be perfect again one day. You guys tracking with me? It's a very common way of retelling the story. The problem with that retelling of the story is the Bible. It doesn't begin perfect. It begins with darkness and disorder and chaos. And out of that state of chaos, God doesn't make something that's perfect. He makes something that is 7 times over called, in Genesis 1, it's called good. And I'm pretty sure good doesn't mean perfect. Perfect means complete. And so the way the biblical authors tell the story is God brought order and goodness out of chaos. But then when he puts the human in the garden, in proximity to his own life, what that is an opportunity for good to become complete. And that is an opportunity that is forfeited and never realized in the biblical story, because they make the dumb choice, and they go where? They go out into the wilderness, and then it ends up in a flood again. Are you with me? Jesus comes onto the scene not to restore a perfection that was lost, but it's actually to reclaim a future and a destiny that has never been experienced by any human before. And it seems to me that Jesus really saw the suffering and evil in his world as a result of this huge cascade of cause and effect, all leading back to the lies of the snake.
So you remember that sermon?
I do. Yes, I remember that. But it's funny when you say things many ideas ago, and that's good for me to hear that. I need to hear that today.
Continuing in on the Sermon on the Mount, I wanted to discuss the heavy emphasis on not judging others in Jesus' teaching. The Sermon on the Mount specifically emphasizes the importance of how we treat another human regardless of the circumstances. One of the most emphatic expressions of this is in Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, when Jesus tells us to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. Can you tell us how Jesus' emphasis on this point relates to Paul's declaration in Ephesians that we are never wrestling against flesh and blood or another human, but against rulers and spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. How do those concepts fit together for Jesus, or do they at all?
Yeah, man, that's a perceptive question. I think they do fit together. The way, speaking of the beginning, is always near. The way the relationship between Genesis chapter 3 and 4 is something that keeps being so important to how I think the Bible works and working on me, that it's another one. I always say Genesis 1 through 3 is the foundation, but I guess what I really mean is Genesis 1 through 4. But once you say that, then it's Genesis 1 through 11, and then it's, whatever. It's hard to stop.
Yeah.
But Genesis 3 and 4 is the moment where the son of Adam and Eve, Cain, is faced with a decision about doing what God says is a decision between what is good and not good, or the actual words used. So instead of a decision between good and bad, like what his parents faced, it's a decision between what is good and not good. And what he's going to do with his anger in relationship to his brother, and he's angry at his brother because of God. And God calls the not good option somehow being connected to sin. It's the first time sin appears in the biblical story. Sin is a croucher, and its desire is for you. So this inner desire for Cain to do something bad to his brother is set on analogy to the crawling, crouching animal of the snake in Genesis 3. And so I think what that's trying to tell us is that we live in a world, because it's not complete, that's full of all of these options. There's different ways to go about doing things. And now that we have the knowledge of good and bad, it's on us to try and navigate a way forward. And there's going to be all these moments where we have to make a decision, not between what's clearly good and bad, but just how do I even tell the difference between what's good versus not good?
Mm.
Like when something's clearly bad, it's bad. But what if it's how do I know which one of these is the not good one? And that those are hard decisions to make. And one of those paths lies under the influence of the snake. Now, the snake, obviously, it's a narrative image, and I don't want to distract anybody for whom it's important that it's a literal narrative or a literal image. So it could be that, it could be a symbol, whichever view you take. The image of the snake is trying to tell us something, that it's slippery, that it's hard to grab, right? It goes underground, it goes away. Where does it come from? It's a land creature, but it also kind of lives under the ground. And then when I think about these desires that I have when issues of good and not good come in front of me, that's also how my feelings and my desires often feel. It's like stuff comes up out of me and I don't know where that came from. And so that these stories give you this really fruitful meditation on the nature of human psychology and desire.
Mm.
And that there is this pattern that when I don't tune in to what my conscience is telling me, or what I feel like I know is what the wisdom God would give me, when I give in to use Star Wars imagery, the dark side, it's not just human stupidity going on there. Like we're participating in a really self-ruinous pathway that is the same kind of ruin that's at work decaying our bodies. It's the same kind of ruin decaying our relationships and our communities. And it's like all interconnected in the same way. And this is connected to the snake and connected to other images of the Satan and spiritual powers of evil, like Paul said. So all that is just what Jesus and the apostles take for granted, that evil is this, as C.S. Lewis, is this parasitic reality that just is a vandal
Mm.
at its core. All it can do is take what God is leading towards the good and detract and slow it down and drag it down. And that when we don't live as the images of God that we really know is the right way forward, we're participating in something bigger, and it's anti-cosmic, anti-creation, and it's, I mean, we're living at a particular moment here. This is October, the end of October
29.
2024.
Yeah.
So, I could name all the crises happening in the world are just the ones I know about. And if it were another decade, we could go down another list of crises. And you just have to ask, like, is that just the accumulation of human limitations and frailty and stupidity and selfishness? And it's like, well, in one sense, yes. But in another sense, it's like we're up against something that just no matter the best people and the brightest minds and the most noble intentions, we just can't seem to get our act together. And we are our worst enemies, speaking on the species level. And so that way Jesus could look at the soldiers coming to arrest him in the garden and say, this hour belongs to you. So naming these guards coming to arrest him. And then he says, and to the powers of darkness.
Mm.
So that's like a Cain. It's like Cain's, right? If you were talking to Cain, he would have said like, this night belongs to you and to sin that you've given into. And those are just two aspects of the same thing. I think that's I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I'm
You're
trying
not.
to
You're
land the
not.
plane.
You're doing
I
good.
think all of that's underneath what the Bible's trying to tell us about who our enemy is. And that when I come across a human who they think that we're enemies, it's training me to reimagine them, re-narrate the whole scenario, to be like, this is somebody who thinks that they need to treat me the way they're treating me in order to prove or do what they think is good in the world. And I don't accept the terms on
Yeah.
which they're relating to me. They're an image of God. They may not know it, or they may think they're being an image of God in the way that's creating this disaster right now. But I refuse to accept those terms, and I'm going to love them and I'm bless them. Or I might need to call out their behavior and say, like, you're behaving in this way. And do you see how it's out of sync with probably the values that you really want to see realized in the world? And I'm not your enemy. At least I don't want to hurt you. And let's go have dinner, you know? But it's just reframing it. So that might be a trite little scenario that I painted. But something like that has to be underneath what Jesus truly believed, or else he wouldn't have let, the Jerusalem leaders do what they did to him.
Yeah.
He really must not have believed they were his enemy,
Mm.
ultimately, even though they were the ones, opposing him. So sorry, I could have said all that more
No, you
concise
did
way,
great.
but
And I think what comes from me, because I think you started with saying, don't want to upset for whoever's taken the narrative literally or not. I think when we embody just the narrative, the Hebrew narrative itself for what it's trying to say, and then we take Jesus, who we proclaim as literally putting flesh onto that narrative and stepping into reality, and it stepping out of the pages and into real life history and time. We're going to get to this in a second with a point like Jesus is my compass for understanding the reality, because I follow him. That's what I claim to do. I'm going to follow Jesus, right? So, and in those moments, there was, like you said in that thing, that he was battling against something behind the scenes on a rescue mission for humanity, because he knew that which we were wrestling against, we didn't have a chance. We're done, and that reality to Jesus in the narrative spoke out and said words and had I don't even want to use the word, but feelings or whatever, like there was like a
sure. Sure.
And that reality behind it is something that I think is important as I'm digesting how I live through this life. I've heard you tell the story a couple times how you've only had one weird spiritual encounter in your entire 40 years of life, but just that one moment. And I think that is true. It's not something that we're going to experience every day. It's not the average everyday Christian's a life that they're going to see that, but it's still a part of the narrative, and then it's a part of the reality that Jesus brought out to us for us to understand. So I think it's just important to bring to the surface. I'm rambling now, so I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, and I guess maybe, but I think the story is also trying to reshape our our perspective and our awareness so that in a way we do see it as part of our day-to-day lived experience. I
Yeah.
may not see an exorcism take place in my day-to-day
Yeah.
experience. You said, I've only participated in something like that once. But I think I've probably had half a dozen moments today when I was relating to someone or riding my bike to work where I had a decision about what is good and not good.
Exactly.
And all of those are the same. The stakes are the same. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
um, the manifestation, the appearance of the phenomenon is different, but it's all interconnected. And I think maybe part of me that's why um, I just can't quit biblical studies is because the Bible keeps illuminating my actual lived experience in a way that makes all of the experiences that I have part of an interconnected whole in a way I've never experienced before. And it's coherent. And now we're talking about the parts of the Bible that for many years were the hardest to understand for me, the portraits of spiritual evil. I'll say one thing that is the puzzle for me is about the 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 personal status of the evil one.
Okay.
That's just the biblical authors take it for granted, like you say. Like there's the evil one is a character presented in a person-like type of profile. But there's all kinds of other theological and philosophical questions that raises that the biblical authors don't tackle head on, and that are things I think about all the time. So, in other words, the point is that it's not like the Bible answers everything,
Amen.
but it does give a portrait of our experience of evil or chaos or not good that is really true to our lived experience and that I find compelling.
We need your help. Ring Them Bells is a nonprofit organization where every dollar donated goes right back into the mission of spreading the good news and helping those in need. The main ministry of Ring Them Bells is serving those in need in the name of our King Jesus. We create pop-up feeding centers all across the United States to help feed the homeless. We also specialize in hurricane relief. We go into the hardest hit areas. We bring free cooked food. We bring important supplies. We're going to bring prayer to these people, and most importantly, we bring hope to those in need. And you can help with this. Over the past year, we have fed over 2,000 meals, and next year, we want to double that. We can't do this without your support. Everything we create here and all of the food that we serve is free because it's paid for by generous viewers just like you. If you feel led to donate and join the mission with us here at Ring Them Bells, click the Give Butter link in the notes and comments of this video. For anyone who donates monthly, we want to say thank you. We're going to mail you out some swag. You're going to be joined into our exclusive Bells Angels Club, where you'll get swag and exclusive content that no one else gets. If you can't support us financially, please continue to like and share the content, as this helps us so much with spreading the good news about what Jesus has done for our world. God is growing this community in ways that I could never imagine, and I am so grateful to be a part of this with you. We are literally just getting started here, folks. Stay tuned. The beginning is near. Amen to that.